and welcome to Eat These Words. Today I'm going to be making something called sea pie. That's S-E-A-P-I-E, sea pie. I'm going to be doing not quite a traditional sea pie, but near enough. This is a 1914, maybe slightly earlier 1890s recipe. It's pretty straightforward to make. What you start with are these ingredients here. I've got finely sliced carrots, that's 3 finely sliced carrots and 3 finely sliced onions, and I've got a kilo of beef, stewing beef, and 2 stock cubes, because the recipe says you can either use water, which is what they had at hand, oftentimes seawater, or beef boilings, which is basically beef stock. So I'm going to assemble my sea pie. So first of all, it says to layer a load of vegetables on the bottom. So I'm going to put carrots and onions on the bottom. It says to put it in a shallow dish, or a shallow stewing pot, shall we say. And this is the shallowest one that I've got. Half of them all, I think, maybe. And then it says to layer your beef. So I'm going to put half of my beef. Doesn't really matter how many layers you have. What they used to use in days gone by is salted meat, so salted pork, which is the way they used to preserve things back in the day. So layer your beef in, and then pop another layer of vegetables on top. Just scatter them around. I like onions. If you don't want to use as many onions, then feel free not to. Put another layer in. There's been many different variations to this. A lot of people say it was from the 19th century. It really wasn't. The earliest recipe dates back to 1747. Basically a little bit of salt beef, some onion, and then a crust on top, which is basically what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to put the remainder of my onions and carrot on top. If you don't like handling your meat, then wear a pair of gloves. I'm quite happy, and I'll be washing my hands as soon as I'm done, so I'm all right. Okay, then it says to add a lot of salt and pepper. So I'm going to be adding pepper and 2 stock cubes for what could have been considered meat boilings. So there wasn't any herbs unless they had them on board. No such things as bay leaves, etc. Wasn't such a thing on them days, you know. Depends what they could get in each pot, eh? I'm going to sprinkle on top my stock cubes. That's my beef boilings, or my meat boilings. It could have been anything really. It would have been maybe stock or yesterday's old soup or whatever was lying around. In them days it was a case of make do. And you were lucky if you even got an onion in it, because this recipe hails from the Navy. I'm just going to read you a little bit of what I've found out about it before I continue. They may have had the odd anchovy in this, just for a bit of seasoning, but they wouldn't have put fish in it, and a lot of places do put fish in it. A lot of places use different types of meat in it, but I'm told that the best one was, or rather the main one, was beef that was generally used. But I'm going to be topping it with a suet crust, which is what my 1914 recipe says to do. It was originally steamed as well, because there was no ovens on ships in the 1700s. There's never been potatoes in this. There's a lot of recipes do actually put potatoes in it, but there's none actually. It wasn't the actual recipe to start off with. Fill it up with warm water until you cover your meat. So each what I'm going to do. Seems like a lot of water, but we'll go with it. Okay, that looks good to me. And it also says to use some ketchup, believe it or not. Ketchup was either mushroom or tomato juice. one or the other, and they would boil it down and add various seasonings to it, salt, pepper, maybe a bit of vinegar or something. Not the stuff we have today, which is basically full of sugar, but hey ho, we're going to use that. It says to add a dessert spoon. Is it open? Yes it is. It didn't look as if it was coming out that. It says to add a dessert spoon, so that's what we'll do. Here we go. Oopsie. Now, as I've got quite a quantity, I'm going to add 2 dessert spoons. Here we go. And give it a little mix in. And that, I would imagine, is for seasoning, along with the beef drippings. But generally, as I say, it used to be seawater. Okay. And then it says to cook it. So I'm going to cook it. I'm going to bring it to the simmer and let it simmer away while I make the topping. I just want to say for all my American people who are watching that there is a recipe dated from 1796 from Amelia Simmons, who published the first cookbook in America, and called American Cookery, no doubt. So anybody who thinks that sea pie isn't traditionally British, I just want to point out that she altered the recipe in 1796 to accommodate the area that she was living in at the time. But she put in it mutton, pigeon, turkey, all them kind of things. So now I'm going to be making my crust for the top of my stew. And I have in my bowl here, I've got 12 ounces of plain flour. I've got 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. I've got half a teaspoon of salt, and I've got 6 ounces of suet, beef suet. Now you can use vegetarian suet if you want to, or you could just use lard, or just use butter or plant-based bread. It's up to you. Get your hands in there and mix it together, and you want to give the suet a bit of a rub while you're at it, just to break it up a little bit and make sure it's incorporated throughout the flour as evenly as possible. So what they used to use on top of the sea pie back in the day, back in the early days of seafaring, was something called a ship's biscuit, which was basically wholemeal flour, water and salt all mixed together and then baked in the oven. It came out rock hard, as you can imagine. Still made it in the wartime, I'm pretty sure, and it was called hardtack for the simple reason it was rock hard. The longer they were on board ship and the longer it lasted, the softer it got. So I suppose it would be softer then to be broken up and used as a crust on top of this sea pie. If you have any comments, or if you know this is something else, please leave a comment in the section down below. That'd be great, and I'll have a look at that. I would love to hear what everybody's got to say. Introduce yourself, where you're from. I'm going to make a well in the middle, and we're going to bring this together with some cold water, nothing else. So I've got in my jug about a pint of cold water, and what I'm going to do with it is add it gradually, and I'm just going to mix that in with a fork. I don't know how much this will take, I've got to be honest, and it's a case of just keep adding. You don't want it, it's like scone mixture if you will, you don't want it to be too wet and you don't want it to be too dry, you just want it to be right, which is no help at all. That's what we're aiming for. I'm not sure that we're going to need much more, I've got to be honest, so I'm going to see how it is. I'm going to feel it. Yeah, that's a little bit sticky, so I think that's enough for me. And that has been just about 8 ounces of water. 8 fluid ounces of water. So I'm going to get in there and knead it. And if it needs any, excuse the pun, if it needs any more as we go, we'll adjust. So my surface is clean. I'm going to tip it out and I'm going to knead it for a minute, just until it all comes together. There we go. And we're nearly there. Hurrah! So I'm going to get my bowl and let it sit for a minute. There we go, on there. So this is my stew. It's been on now for about an hour and a half, and I'm going to pop my lid on now, which is my suet crust. Well, I've floured a piece of baking parchment, and so this doesn't stick. Because we don't want it to stick, do we? Give it a tap out my bowl, pop it down. It says to roll it just one way. I've never been a one to follow instructions, me, but here we go. So I'm gonna just roll. Oh, I've already did you get that? Didn't I? Went 2 ways. She said roll it one way. So roll it one way I will. So I'm gonna keep going round and round in circles. I just want to say as well while I'm here that after about an hour, I took my lid off my stew and left it off for a while, just for the simple reason I want a bit of the liquid to evaporate. Because my pan is so big, there's quite a lot of liquid in the pan to cover my meat, so I just wanted it to evaporate a little bit. Right, I'm just going to check the size of this by getting the lid, which has cooled down substantially. Oh, we're nearly there, just a smidge more. So it's a good way of doing it if you have a lid. Use the lid. If anybody's got any old family recipes, let me know. I would love to hear them and I'll give them a whirl. Right, I'm going to pop this on top of my stew. Okay, this is still on. Take that off the top. That over and lay it on top. Ooh, shrunk already, never mind. And then pop the lid on. I'm going to leave that to get bigger. I just want to show you what's going on with the suet crust. So it's been in for 10-15 minutes and it's getting bigger. And we need to wait until it is cooked all the way through. So it's been about 15 minutes and as you can see, it has expanded. And I'm just going to check it to see if it's cooked. When I'm hoping, yep, nothing's coming out here. Oh, there. So I'm just going to leave that to sit now and cook my vegetables that I'm having, which is broccoli, for my tea, and work from there. I'm going to serve up my pie now. There we go. This is it in all its glory. I'm going to cut it down the middle, being careful because my pan is non-stick and I don't want to break it. I'm just going to cut a section out as if it's a cake for everyone, I think. So, there we go. And let's see how it looks. Oh, look at that. So yeah, it is a bit watery, but that's what you'd expect because they didn't use thickening agents back in the day as we do now. But that's our stew, and this is my dad's. So I'm going to serve it with a couple of pieces of broccoli for him. And instead of, we're not using potatoes because we've got our pie crust. What's it like? There you go. Just have a look at that. Ooh. Let's taste it. Here we go, chin up. Not bad at all. The suet crust is, as I expected, good for standing in for potatoes. The meat is cooked. The gravy is a bit thin for my liking. I would prefer it to be thickened, but good. If you like what I'm doing, hit me up with a thumbs up. Subscribe, it's free to everybody if you've got a Google account. Just hit the subscribe button below and the notification bell and they'll let you know about any videos that I upload. Leave a comment in the section below if you've heard of this before or if you've seen it made before or you make it yourself, and let me know how you do it. Anyway, for now, Liz out.